You know that moment when you're talking to someone, you finish your sentence, and the other person doesn't respond and just stays quiet. And suddenly, even though you were done talking, you feel this awkward pressure that makes you explain yourself a little more, just to keep the conversation going. The moment they don't react, you feel a bit of tension. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to make you wonder if you should keep talking. So you do. You add another sentence, then maybe another. Not because you have more to say, but because the silence feels too uncomfortable. And you can probably relate to that feeling. The slight discomfort that shows up when there's no reaction, and you're not really sure how you're being received. Most people deal with it the same way, without even thinking about it. So why does silence make people uncomfortable? And why do quiet people often end up learning the most from it? It's because conversation isn't really just about words. Most of the time, it's about the little signals we get back while we're talking, like a nod or some kind of reaction that shows we're being understood. When those signals don't show up, your brain starts overthinking whether you said something wrong or whether you're being judged. And the easiest way most people know how to deal with that feeling is to keep talking. Silence creates pressure because nothing gets answered. The other person isn't getting a reaction, so they start filling the gaps themselves. They explain more, back up what they're saying, and sometimes they even say things they didn't plan to, like something personal that probably didn't need to be said. And this is the part most people miss. People don't talk more in silence because they suddenly have more to say. They talk because quiet moments make them self-aware. When no one reacts, you start paying more attention to how your words sound and whether they made sense. That feeling is uncomfortable, so most people try to get out of it by talking more. And that's probably why silence feels so awkward in everyday life. Not because it's rude, but because you lose that feeling of knowing how you're being received. When someone responds right away, you get some kind of confirmation back. But when they don't, you start overthinking what you just said. Psychologists call part of this social uncertainty. It's what happens when there's no feedback and your brain starts checking itself. You start wondering how you sounded or whether what you said made sense. And the more unsure someone feels, the more they tend to keep talking, because talking helps them feel more comfortable again. That's also why therapists often stay quiet after emotional moments. Silence gives people room to keep going, and when they're not interrupted, they usually end up saying what they actually feel. It's the same reason experienced interrogators pause instead of immediately jumping to the next question. But this is where people often misunderstand it. Silence isn't about manipulating anyone or trying to pull something out of them. It's really about not rushing to fill every quiet moment just to ease that discomfort. Most people talk to calm themselves down and make things feel less awkward, and when that doesn't happen, the focus naturally shifts away from you and onto the other person. The interesting thing is that silence comes across as powerful because it shows you're not looking for immediate reassurance. You're not rushing to be understood or trying to control where the conversation goes. You're just present, and that alone changes how people respond to you. Modern life trains us to react instantly to messages and opinions. We learn that replying fast looks confident and engaged, like it means you know what you're doing. So silence gets treated like something awkward or weak, but it's not. Silence just doesn't perform, and when you stop performing, other people suddenly become more aware of how much they're trying to seem engaged. Think about how rare that actually is. Someone who doesn't rush to defend themselves or prove anything and is comfortable letting a moment sit. People usually tend to respond to that whether they're aware of it or not. Now, this doesn't mean silence always works. It depends on the situation and how it's used. But what stays consistent is how people react when the usual back and forth breaks. When the other person doesn't react right away, people start checking themselves instead, and that's often when they end up being more honest. What silence really gives you isn't control, it's information. When you don't guide the moment, you get to see how someone reacts on their own. You notice how they handle uncertainty and what they do when there's no direction. That usually tells you more than anything they could ever say on purpose. Silence asks you to slow down, and in a world full of constant opinions and explanations, that feels uncomfortable. It forces you to sit with yourself for a moment instead of reacting right away. And most people aren't used to that, so they rush to fill the space or talk their way out of the feeling. But when you stop filling the silence, you start paying attention to different things. You stop focusing on what's being said and start noticing how it's being said, the pauses, the hesitation, and the things people avoid. So maybe that's really what it comes down to. Silence makes people reveal things because it removes the noise they usually hide behind. When you stop rushing to be heard, you stop interrupting what's already happening. You give moments more space to play out. And that's often when people keep going and show you who they really are. The moment you stop filling every gap with words, awareness and clarity move in instead, and silence doesn't feel empty anymore.